Hello, we're dealing with 1984 by George Orwell. Great, a classic, read it a few times, and I'm loving reading through it now. The sun is fighting the clouds, so excuse the light. You're going to see brightness and darkness come up and go back. See what I was. Okay, I lose my spot. It was nearly 1100, and in the records department where Winston worked, they were dragging the chairs out of the cubicles and grouping them in the center of the hall, opposite the telescreen, in preparation for the 2-minute hate. Winston was just taking his place in one of the middle rows when two people whom he knew by sight but had never spoken to came unexpectedly into the room. One of them was a girl whom he often passed in the corridors. He did not know her name, but he knew that she worked in the fiction department, presumably since he had sometimes seen her with oily hands and carrying a spanner. She had some mechanical job on one of the novel writing machines. She was a bold looking girl, and about 27, with thick dark hair, a freckled face, and swift athletic movements. A narrow scarlet sash, emblem of the Junior Anti-Sex League, was, was wound several times around the waist of her overalls, just tightly enough to bring out the shape lines in her hips. Winston had disliked her from the very first moment of seeing her. He knew the reason. It was because of the atmosphere of hockey fields and cold baths and community hikes and general clean-mindedness which she managed to carry about with her. He disliked nearly all women, and especially the young and pretty ones. It was always the women, and above all the young ones, who were the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogans, the amateur spies and the nosers out of unorthodoxy. But this particular girl gave him the impression of being more dangerous than most. Once, when they passed in the corridor, she had given him a quick sidelong glance, which seemed to pierce right into him and for a moment had filled him with black terror. The idea had even crossed his mind that she might be an agent of the thought police. That it was true was very unlikely. Still, he continued to feel a peculiar uneasiness, which had fear mixed up in it as well as hostility, when she was anywhere near him. The other person was a man named O'Brien, a member of the inner party and holder of some post so important and remote that Winston had only a dim idea of its nature. A momentary hush passed over the group of people round the chairs as they saw the black overalls of the inner party member approaching. O'Brien was a large, burly man with a thick neck and a coarse, humorous, brutal face. In spite of his formidable appearance, he had a certain charm of manner. He had a trick of resettling his spectacles on his nose, which was curiously disarming, in some indefinable way, curiously civilized. It was a gesture which, if anyone had still thought it such terms, might have recalled an 18th century nobleman offering his snuff box. Winston had seen O'Brien perhaps a dozen times in almost as many years. He felt deeply drawn to him, and not solely because he was intrigued by the contrast between O'Brien's urbane manner and his prize fighter's physique. Much more it was because of a secretly held belief, or perhaps not even a belief, merely a hope, that O'Brien's political orthodoxy was not perfect. Something in his face suggested it irresistibly, and again, perhaps it was not even unorthodoxy that was written in his face, but simply intelligence. But at any rate, he had the appearance of being a person that you could talk to. If somehow you could cheat the telescreen and get him alone. Winston had never made the smallest effort to verify this guess. Indeed, there was no way of doing so. At this moment O'Brien glanced at his wristwatch, saw that it was nearly 1100, and evidently decided to stay in the records department until the 2 minutes. Hate was over. He took a chair in the same row as Winston, a couple of places away. A small, sandy haired woman who worked in the next cubicle to Winston was between them. The girl with the dark hair was sitting immediately behind. So here you see Winston meeting the people who are going to be eventually, how should I say it, instruments of his awakening and downfall. Because when you're awakened in a tyrannical society, but there is no movement to overthrow the tyranny, it's going to be your downfall. That's just the way it is. Um, the one great thing about the United States is so large that there's still room for us to be thoughtful. But the old systems did not leave a lot of space for, how should I say, did not leave a lot of space for enemies of that system or anybody that was going to do anything independent of the system. So you either had to conform in the system or go and create and develop your own systems. And unfortunately, in the United States, you could do that. Some of us did it and still ended up destitute, but we could do it. But now that all those systems are broken down, you see a floodgates are opening up, and more people are exercising their independence in every area: art, culture, science, and all of that. And you also see that those of us who have been doing it are bursting out, and it's like we've been here 10, 15, 20 years already. Now y'all just starting to understand. So it's good. And until next time, I'm going to thank you for your support, and take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.